Hey, welcome to the Time Enough podcast. This is where we get into the Twilight Zone and all sorts of wild and woolly anthology shows. This is Matt here. Joining me today is the maker of some horror movies, a few westerns, which ties in nicely to today. Hello, Henrique Couto.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. And yeah, it's just another week in Japan, but thanks for joining on the dawn of a holiday in America, I guess. We're recording.
Thanksgiving Eve.
Yeah. Not as exciting as Christmas Eve, but
No,
no.
not at all.
Yeah,
That's why I'm dressed like it's the day before a holiday. Of course, everybody wanted a piece of me at work, so it was just, I thought today would be a nothing day. So literally, I got a shower, put on a robe, and went, okay, I'm ready for this podcast. I can do this.
I'm in my roll out of bed flannel here myself, so this being sort of double duty on the podcast today. But yeah, I guess the big holiday now in America is Black Friday, is it?
It's not as big as it was this year. Walmart and Best Buy won't even be open on Thanksgiving evening.
Oh, good for them. They shouldn't be.
I used to have a good time going on Thanksgiving evening just to see what was out there.
No, for years.
Go ahead.
I was just saying for years. I'm in Japan, right? Black Friday here. They heard the name and the date, but last year I went to the department store and they just had this display of black things, black T-shirts, black boxers, black socks, and that was their Black Friday sale. That was awesome.
That's funny. I love that.
I've been Amazoning it, and this year I did snag the Blu-ray of the complete Fast and the Furious to make my head explode. So
all right, because you don't have friends, you have family. So
that's right. Yeah, that's for Thanksgiving. It's my family for Thanksgiving. Okay, sorry, you had a little tale you were telling.
Oh no, just I thought today was going to be like this very calm, relaxing day, and it turned out to be like a really intense work day. I was dealing with film labs, which don't actually deal with film, but they are a lab, and they are very frustrating. So I got all of that done, got my shower, and then once I got my robe on, I was like, all right, let's do this podcast, because I officially don't have anybody wanting anything from me until like noon tomorrow.
All right. Hopefully talking about the Twilight Zone is more like a good time.
Oh yeah.
Today's episode is Mr. Denton on Doomsday, the third aired episode of the series. And if you give me a moment, I'll just rattle off a bit of trivia as I try to sound like someone who did at least his wiki research. So star Mr. Denton himself, Dan Duryea, tried to be an ad exec to please his parents, but a rather early heart attack sent him into acting instead. He became a fixture of film noir and westerns. Pride of the Yankees, Winchester 73, and Flight of the Phoenix standing out as some notable appearances. He died at a relatively young 61 years of age in 1969. Martin Landau as the one of the bandits. Do we really need to say more about him if you're still scratching your head for some reason? The Mission Impossible TV series, Space 1999, and his role as Bela Lugosi and Ed Wood.
He blew my mind seeing him in there. It blew my mind. I was like, wait, that's totally Martin Landau.
And we'll get to it. So you're like, is it? Because he's so off his normal.
Well, he's one of those. Yeah, he's one of those guys who played an old man for like 40 years.
Yeah,
you know, and there he is being young as hell and a cowboy.
Smiling. It's pretty wild. Mr. Fate is Malcolm Attenbury, who wasn't a shining star of stage and screen, but he filled in some notable bit parts in Hitchcock films like North by Northwest and The Birds. I found it mildly mind-blowing that him and Dan Duryea were the same age.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, no way. Dan Duryea,
yeah.
No, Dan Duryea at this point was like 51, 52. Mm-hmm. And so is Mr. Fate. So one of them looks way young for his age. One of them looks way old for his age. But
yeah, in Hollywood, that's telling.
And Alan Reisner directed the episode, and that is pretty much all I was able to get on him. But you know what? He did a hell of a job on this episode.
Oh yeah.
Henrik, I'm going to put you through your paces now, and I would like you can do this however you want, but I make the guest do the opening narration from the episode. Um, you can do your Serling impression. Andrew is here. I think he just started doing a Southern madman or something. So it's up to you, but it should be on your screen now.
Okay, let me get ready for this one. Portrait of a town drunk named Al Denton. This is a man who's begun his dying early, a long, agonizing route through a maze of bottles. Al Denton, who would probably give an arm or a leg or a part of his soul to have another chance, to be able to rise up and shake the dirt from his body and the bad dreams that infest his consciousness. In the parlance of the times, this is a peddler, a rather fanciful-looking man in a black frock coat. And this is the third principal character of our story. Its function, perhaps, to give Mr. Al Denton his second chance.
All right. Seems the groovy impression route. I dig that too. I don't know if you heard any of I sent you a few of my first ones. And I the listener will hear me doing my sort of kind of impression at the beginning of the podcast, but then it's up to the guests from there. So
I've always loved that Rod Serling was the voice. I always loved that, especially because you could tell he didn't really like it that much.
No, he was like they tried to bring in Orson Welles and other luminaries who had tried, portrait of a town drunk named Al Denton, and it just doesn't work. And he was like, okay, I'll just do it. He didn't even get on screen until the second season, but I mean, now, if you're doing a comedy or something, you want to like phone in, there's a narrator, you put something that looks and or sounds like Rod Serling.
And Rod Serling, he when they put him on camera, he didn't want to be on camera. He wanted to do that even less. And that's why he famously always had a cigarette, because he had been told by like old showbiz types that when you're nervous on camera, having something to hold on to is like a necessary way to kind of break that nervousness and make you feel like you're doing something and being interesting. So he always had that cigarette in his hand, even though he very seldom puffed it. It would just be burning there in his hand while he talked, which I always thought was interesting too, because it's like, oh, so here's this ethereal, otherworldly narrator. But also this is like his break from his shift at Bennigan's or whatever. So he's got to get his smoke in real quick while he tells you all about Mr. Denton.
Well, it's good he didn't like decide to have like a vibrator in his hand or something.
I mean, I wonder if the show would have been even more memorable somehow if he had, but
yeah. Something interesting. I think production wise, this is a little bit down the line, like 7 or 8. It's not the first one they filmed by far, but they'd already done The Lonely, which they chose Death Valley. And I'm like, man, they chose some really hot places to film.
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense to do an episode. The moment I flipped this on, I hadn't seen this one in a while. I hadn't seen it since maybe one of those New Year. I think they used to do New Year's Sci-Fi Channel marathons of Twilight Zone. Yeah. And that was the last time I had seen this, was during one of those marathons, maybe even 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. And the moment I clicked it on and saw it was a Western, I was like, yeah. And because back then, any excuse to do a Western version of something was wise, because it was the height of Western TV shows and movies in America. So if you had a Western episode, you'd be like, well, then let's just go to one of the pre-standing Western towns where they already have Western extras and costumes just sitting there. Because literally when one Western show ends a season, another Western show begins. So from a producerial standpoint, it was like, yes, good. Go to the Old West whenever you can, because it looks expensive when in reality it's very convenient during that time period.
No, there's a reason you were invited for the Western one. So I don't know if it was or wasn't, but I just couldn't help being like, is that the Spawn Ranch?
It might have been, though.
It might have been.
That would have been the sweet spot for it. That would have been the sweet spot for the Spawn Ranch. So I don't know, though. There were so many of them. That's the thing, because people don't realize just how hot Westerns were. And that was a big thing. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that they show is how like Westerns were hot, and then they were very suddenly not. And That's why they're like, when the young people in that movie, when they're referencing it, like, oh, he's just a character from some old Western, you know, like, because they've glommed them all together as just like that howdy doody time period that their dad talks about, but they're not into it, man, because it's
Yeah.
too violent, man.
But regardless of where it was, I'm like, yes, I have seen the saloon like 80 million times somewhere.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I remember there was a one of my favorite Western movie trivia pieces is that there was a guy who made a fortune just bringing tumbleweeds to California, because there are none in California. So he would go out to Arizona, I believe, and New Mexico, and he would literally just grab them and fill a truck full of them and then drive into California and sell them to all the prop houses. And he'd just make bank, and that's all he'd do. He'd furnish tumbleweeds because they were so important to the Western aesthetic back then.
Hollywood's tumbleweed man. His last job was probably Lebowski. Yeah, that nice big one to roll around.
You need a tumbleweed? I'm your guy.
Yeah. So Martin Landau only shows up in the first 5-6 minutes till he gets his hand blown off, or not blown off. Sorry, that's a little too strong a word, but yeah, definitely, like, absolutely doing the template that they I mean, he's almost doing the Blazing Saddles role, which is kind of hysterical. The the henchman guy, the one that gets everyone singing Camptown Races.
But yeah, because his thing is he gets off on making the town drunks sing for whiskey, which is very cruel, and cruel for cruelness sake.
I think punk rockers sing for drinks. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, in a way, doesn't everyone?
Yeah.
But let's not get philosophical.
But yeah, a smiling Martin Landau definitely makes me think of like a smiling Spock, which I guess makes sense since Leonard Nimoy was also in Mission Impossible. But
yeah, no, that's a good point.
Things are going to go wrong. I finally got my Space 1999 out and back on the bookshelf. So
good. Got
to get back to that soon. that is, I mean, that and Ed Wood would be my main Landau sweet spots. So, but
nice. No, he's so good in Ed Wood.
Yeah. Of course, he's not the star here. That's Dan Duria's Mr. Denton, and once I found out he's like 50 when he did this, it just blew my mind. But he's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. No, he elicits a lot of sympathy. He's a very sad character. There's nothing sadder than like a totally broke down drunk who completely understands that that's where he's at in his life and that's who he is. And that's kind of the end of it. Because that whole line where that woman asks him how he found himself to be drinking so much, he says, well, I reckon I just picked up the habit and never let it go. And you're like, wow, that's a very simplistic way of saying, like, so anyway, I ruined my life.
Well, was his desperation as a always pestered gunslinger as well? He's like, yeah, I just kept drinking earlier in the morning and
oh yeah,
a little bit earlier each day.
It was just the way he started it out. The first reference to him drinking all the time is I just picked up a habit.
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, a little habit, huh? That has you singing in the middle of the street in the morning for whiskey.
He got called a rummy, which is I just want to throw out, in Japan it's a seasonal chocolate, rum raisin chocolate. It's really good, but it's like sometimes you're buying it's like, does this make me a rummy? The current display, it's got like this kind of like this glamorous a little older, she looks like she's around 50 years old, but kind of glam looking, sitting in a leather bound chair for the advertisement for rummy. I'm like, well, she's a drunk. Okay.
Well, there you go. No wonder she's so happy.
She's the rummy, right? I don't know. Should we consider a drinking problem is better than a shooting problem, though?
I mean, definitely, the character has definitely decided that is the case.
Yeah.
He'd rather be a drunk than be a gunslinger.
Finding guns in the street, although we do have the somewhat on the nose named Mr. Fate leaving it there for him.
What, you think you're saying Mr. Fate lacks subtlety? What are you talking about? No, and that's actually a good point. So I love the Twilight Zone. I love anthology television. I love the idea of tuning in every week for another story from a new storyteller. I love that. I think that's so much fun. And it was especially special back in the day, all the way up and through the 90s, because we had amazing stories in the late 80s where that was took it one step further, where it wasn't just a new story every week, it was a new story from like the masters of storytelling of Hollywood. You had Steven Spielberg and Mick Garris and Joe Dante, and you had all these people who had made really great movies. And that was special because back then television was kind of, relegated to lesser things. It was relegated to smaller things and old movies and things like that, unless you had like pay cable or something. So I've always loved the idea. Every week you get a brand new story. Every week is something totally different, except it has this element of a twist to make you think about life and humanity and things like that. Well, one of my favorite tropes of the Twilight Zone is the just mysterious dude that gives you something, sells you something, offers you a deal on something. Yeah. Like I love it because it's like kind of beautifully lazy in a small way. Like it's just so anyway, this drunk gunslinger is like living a normal life, but then this guy is like, I'm not normal and I'll change everything. And but well, the how is always different.
It's part of the economy of the storytelling though. These are except for the fourth season, these are 25-minute things. And when they did stretch it out, it didn't really work as well for the most part. So,
and it's one of the oldest storytelling devices too. I mean, we have tons of literary versions of, someone's living their life the way they're living it, and then a stranger comes along and changes everything, or tells them something, or gives them something that changes it all. That's a very common storytelling element beyond even Twilight Zone. So it's definitely got a classic feel because you have Mr. Fate.
They just needed him to be like, sorry, it's pronounced Fate.
I am Mr. Fate.
Yeah.
I thank you.
That makes it subtle, right?
Exactly. They may as well just call him like Mr. Faust or something. just go all the way.
Well,
Lou Cipher. Although he's actually not bad.
I was about to say it's not a Faustian bargain.
That's true.
Mr. Denton is getting a helping hand that breaks his hand in the end, but he needed a hand broken.
That's the thing. Mr. Fate seemed like not a bad dude, but he seemed like chaotic, like on the less than neutral side. You know what I mean? Because he was offering to give him this drink so that he could kill some kid who wanted to gunfight him. But then when you realize, when the twist is revealed, you realize that really he was evening the playing field and saving both of them if they chose to be saved to some extent. So I think that's, a really excellent twist.
We just gives creepy stares for the first 20 minutes of the show, right? It's not until the very end when he even speaks.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Which is,
so first, sorry.
I was just saying, I guess that's why he was chosen, because I mentioned he was in North by Northwest. He's the guy like calling out there's a crop dusters or something. He's there. He gets a line, but he's it's like somewhere past character actor. It's like I guess he's like a paintbrush, like a certain color you color your show or your movie with.
He's an accent actor. He accentuates something. So no, I mean I definitely like that, and I just like that twist that it was almost playing on what I was just talking about on that kind of trope, because he turns out to be somewhat neutral, or neutral to positive, as opposed to being a bad guy who shows up to help someone be bad again, which is kind of the vibe you start to get, is that he's setting someone up for some pain, blues, and agony.
I have to think that this was on the mind when they were making Back to the Future 3.
I would not be surprised at all.
Because we got Marty, he gets in his car crash. He has a broken hand, can't play guitar anymore.
No, you're right.
I a little bit of Doc Brown's wake up juice would have done some good here, probably. So
that's one that grew on me as I've gotten older. When I was a kid, I thought Back to the Future 3 was and now I'm like, man, that is sweet. That movie is a blast, man.
I was just talking with someone though, how it was kind of like 2 was the hot. I always like both of them because I just love those movies, but 2 was kind of considered the weird hot mess, and everyone loved 3, and it's kind of like 2's more like modern storytelling in film. It was the explanation, which it kind of is because it's all over the place, right? And I love 2.
Yeah, 2 is just 2 got to just go crazy. That's really what it comes down to, with the special effects, with the depiction of the future, with all the inside jokes.
It was the first movie to really play in the sandbox that way.
Yeah. No, and I think that that's why a lot of people love 2 so much. I can't pick a favorite anymore, but when I was a kid, 2 was my favorite because I liked all the ridiculous future stuff, and it
Yeah.
made me imagine living in that world. And but now as an adult, I'm like, yeah, but the Western part's pretty cool. And the Western part is a great palate cleanser after 2, because you just get so much candy, when 2, it's all sweets. And then it's finally like, no, you got to eat some meat and potatoes now. You got to get back to the West and see how Doc Brown saves the day.
So you're wondering if that is another place where the saloon got used. I feel like the layout was pretty much the same.
It could be. Saloons do kind of look the same too.
Yeah. You want to have an old West saloon, you just need to have a big mirror somewhere, some bottles, and a bunch of wood.
Yeah, a bunch of earth tones.
Right. No, so just to push the story, I guess he gets his gunslinging talents back just long enough to get Martin Landau out of town, and wakes up the next one with I guess the DTs as he's trying to shoot again.
Yeah. Charming.
Now the one phase we missed is I wanted to see him with the haircut, but having not gotten rid of the 5 o'clock shadow, I thought that would have been a perfect look we did not get, because he goes straight from scruffy hair 5 o'clock shadow to perfect hair and clean shaven. I was like, nah, he would look up with the shadow still. He didn't need to shave, he just needed a haircut.
Back then they didn't understand fashion, they were just like, you're a clean cut man, here, have some Brill cream, have some more Brill cream. Did I give you any Brill cream?
Yeah, I know. Morocco, my father was in the Navy there, and I visited once, and they don't consider you a man if you don't have a mustache, at least. So he grew one, and he grew one when he was in the Navy for that purpose. And then when I went, I was in Spain and Portugal first, so I just made sure not to shave. So when I got to Morocco, I'd look properly scruffy. No one would call me out for being a boy. I thought I was like 21, 22. I guess I was kind of still boyish. But
depends on the culture for sure.
yeah. Why did I write that? Come on, Denton, you could always use a condom. Why did I write that? I don't know. So sometimes I don't know why it's right before he talks to fate. Okay. So sometimes my own notes are a little bit confusing. It is entertaining. Again, it's because of the compressed storytelling, but just how quickly he gets challenged to a duel. It's like, what?
Oh yeah.
He's literally leaving the barber.
Yeah, well, those young guns, pardon, that was not meant to be a pun, but young guns are just waiting for a chance to make a name for themselves.
Yeah.
So
you want him to shoot what? That's Kevin Bacon. You want him to shoot then? I don't remember who the other young guns were. No, Blaze of Glory was Bon Jovi's one, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. See, I want to call Bon Jovi a young gun, but that's not right. Yeah. Okay. No. I did find it fun. I was just like, every bar loves to just silently listen to the clock tick. I don't know. I mean, I feel like if we're about to have a duel, people would be kind of excited and like having a bit of a bacchanal before the gunslinger.
But that's how excited they are. They're so excited that it's dead silence. They're just like, oh man, finally someone's gonna die for our amusement. It took so long. It's been so long since we had anything really good happen.
Yeah. Well, they had a musical performance the previous day.
Yeah, but that's like just to get you by in a pinch. That's like to bridge you between murders.
And how dry am I? That I don't know. It's not that catchy tune, and he's not a good singer. I don't see why he even deserves the alcohol for his performance.
That's fair. I think the embarrassment is the payment. That's what it really comes down to.
I could give him a dance on his head or something. So
I mean, they could have went like total stereotypical Western, just shot at his feet and made him dance.
Yeah. I guess even in 1959, that was already too much of a cliche. So
oh yeah.
Hence our drunken song here, song singing, whatever it's called. And I do like Grant, the gunslinger, they just have to push him so much for being younger and blonder that he just comes up looking like a Hitler Youth.
Yes, that's a good point.
which makes sense in this case. And then if
Yeah,
we're talking about the Olympics, they're dosing. That's not fair for a gunfight. Can't They should have both been disqualified.
yeah, really. You
What
don't
happened?
get the gold doing that, kids. Winners don't use drugs.
What happens if you're disqualified from a gun duel? How does that work out?
I don't know. I mean, technically, because America has had a long history of duels, of mutual combat in its founding. And technically losing a duel was not being killed. It was simply being the first hit with a bullet meant you
Right.
lost. But often you would get killed. Also, many people who got in duels, the goal was not to kill. So you knew that's why in these like old Western movies and stuff, it was like it wasn't that you got into a duel, is that you got into a duel with like a mad dog killer. You got in a duel with a guy where they're like, that man to kill a man just as much as he eat breakfast. He's gonna be aiming for your head. Like that's that was the reasoning, because there are a lot of stories throughout history of duels being people getting winged, getting hit in the arm, shoulder. Now, of course, you still could die because they didn't even know they needed to wash their hands before they did surgery until like
Yeah,
until like
it's
1890 or something.
not the safest game.
No, I would not say that it's just a thing to do on a Friday night. I would I would say it's yeah, you'd still want to be really committed to mutual combat.
But the winner gets to become vice president.
Yay! I
That's
love democracy.
that's Aaron Burr and whoever won. Was he the winner? Anyways, him and someone, I don't know, one of our founding fathers. Because at that point it was the president was the guy with the most votes, and the vice president was the guy with the
second most.
Yeah, and there was some, other than like hanging chads or January 6th riots and things like that. At that point in time, it was like, hey, we're going to duel for the vice presidency, which that's how they should do it now, I think. So
I mean, I don't see why not. The thing about I always got confused when they made duels illegal, because I was like, well, it's mutual combat. Just don't agree to a duel, dummy. Like it's a very simple. We gotta make duels illegal because we want to keep ourselves safe. It's like, how about you don't agree to being in one after you have too many beers at Chili's, you stupid? That's all you need, is to not get in duel.
Because they glove slapped you, that's why.
Yeah, it's just that's the thing, is they were like, I'm too hot-headed to even say no. I need it to be a law.
I don't need to see blood. We could bring back the old American Gladiator competitions and let that choose our vice presidents.
Yeah. See, I mean, I just want to see some old people beating each other. That's all I'm hoping for.
I still hold hopes for the U.S. Congress to let that be a reality for you.
That'd be so nice. That'd be so nice. Yeah.
They do that in other countries. There's some country recently where they had a full-on riot in their House of Parliament or something. So, like with the lawmakers, not from outside people.
See, I would be amazed if our Congress people would do that much in general.
Nancy
Pelosi
really doing
good at collecting checks.
Body slam.
She just throw her dentures at somebody.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it would be so fantastic. We have
know.
C-SPAN. It's being filmed already. They just need to do it. That's
they just need to put a paywall on it and start working on that national debt. I mean, because I'd be paying to watch them fight, as long as only one person exits. Then I'd be watching.
Oh, here we go. This is my the reason I was talking about Marty McFly not playing guitar is I was like, I guess Denton's not going to be playing guitar or the uke, so that would bum me out. I wouldn't like to have my hand damaged in that way, but I guess Denton, he's more of a singer, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It won't be hurting his artistic expression.
I just thought from this point he'll become like a Wild West like crotch kicker,
There you go.
The fastest foot in the West. There's an old SCTV sketch, Yellow Belly, which it was John Candy. And the thing with Yellow Belly is he just gets scared really quick, like he's just sitting there, and like a wife and kid walk around the corner, he flips out and guns them down and then has to leave town. And that's like an episode of Yellow Belly.
That's funny. That's really good.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. I've never heard of that one. I'm gonna have to YouTube it.
And then John Candy talking like this the whole time. It's pretty. I don't know. It's hard. I don't know if you've seen much SCTV. It's sometimes hard to get people into it. It's very much an acquired taste, but once you acquire the taste, it's so fantastic.
Oh no, I've enjoyed some SCTV. Yeah, it's definitely it's just it's much weirder than Saturday Night Live, so you have to.
Well, it never has a punchline, right?
Yeah, half the time. Yeah, they were just experimenting.
Yeah, I would say I don't remember any punchlines on that show, to be honest. So, but there's probably one somewhere. But yeah. So I like to ask a few questions. First, I guess it's worth asking who was in the Twilight Zone in this one. I guess Mr. Fate is from the Twilight Zone.
Yes.
Mr. Denton, he's got his name on the episode, so that's pretty clear. Would you say any of the other characters were actually going through a bit of the Twilight Zone?
Had the young gun that he duels with at the end. I think this would count as him having a journey through the Twilight Zone as well.
Yeah, we could just change the perspective. Although I don't think his perspective would be as interesting a story, because then you just got a cocky young buck being cocky, right?
Exactly. But in the end, we find out he's also having a supernatural, if you want to call it that, experience, a Twilight Zone experience, because he ends up interacting with Mr. Fate as well.
So right.
So yeah.
That's why I asked the question, even though it's like kind of obvious. Sometimes it's like, wait a minute, like the last episode is one for the angels, and we got into a little bit of a debate if the little girl in that episode had gone through the Twilight Zone or not. So the other one, again, it varies with what episode, but did they deserve their trip into the Twilight Zone? So let's take both gunslingers.
Oh, I think they absolutely did. I think that this one is a perfect morality tale about how it's never too late to straighten up, and how your fate doesn't have to be a bad thing. Your fate can be
a guy in a truck.
A guy in a truck. and also that that your choices can help somebody who's going down the same road as you, because he doesn't just help himself never pick up a gun again. He causes a young man to learn young that it ain't worth being a gunfighter, so he doesn't have to discover it in his 50s when he's a drunk who's washed up and haunted.
But a handsome haunted.
I mean, he was a good looking boy. I ain't gonna deny that.
Yeah. Now the last one is the tripometer, which is on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the trippiest. Decimal points are acceptable. Where would you place this on the tripometer?
I think this one's very grounded. This is a very low trippiness episode. This was definitely when they were finding their groove on the series. So you said, was it 1 to 5 on the tripometer?
Yeah. You go 0 if you want.
Oh, I don't think it's that low, because I mean, it's trippy enough that a guy named Mr. Fate shows. I mean, it's a little trippy. I would say it's like I would call it like a 1.4 on the tripometer. There's, because anytime you drive through the Twilight Zone, you pass through the Twilight Zone, it's going to be a little trippy, but I definitely remember massively trippier episodes. So
yeah, this is actually the first time I think I'm going higher. I was thinking like maybe 2.3 or something. And I'm docking a little bit for being a Western, because I find Westerns to typically be inherently untrippy. El Topo being the exception that proves the rule.
Yes, that is a fair point.
So
I thought that this one was overall very grounded in reality, with just that little flair that passes through, which I like. I like a lot. It sets a cool tone.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like that sort of trippiness is like a little more effective when I say with the fantasy. I mean, I've got the extended Lord of the Rings next to my Space 1999 up there, but I've never been a Lord of the Rings fan. I'm not a fantasy fan, because I guess it's not so grounded in our reality. I mean, you
Yeah.
can get into like, oh, it's ancient forgotten cultures. It was just kind of a cool idea for something like that. But yeah, I remember when Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter movies came out at the same time, thought I'd love Lord of the Rings and hate Harry Potter, and it turned out to be the other way. Now I just don't like J.K. Rowling.
Well, that's the thing. I'm also a person who is not in general a very big fan of fantasy. I love science fiction, but I don't really like fantasy. I have trouble connecting with it. But every now and then one will grab me and take me for a ride I like. But overall, like the swords and sorcery and stuff, it just kind of leaves me in the lurch for the most part.
Yeah. As far as this episode, though, yeah, I think it might have been the first time I seen it, or at least it has been since I was like a kid. So,
Sure.
I've had several. This being one where I'm like, wow, this is real good, because I've just had my pool of about a third of the series on disc, and I've seen those quite a bit. But there's
Yeah.
2/3 I haven't seen so much of. So, I'm enjoying hitting episodes like this that I guess it wasn't so trippy, but it did blow my mind, right?
Oh, sure.
So
No, I really enjoyed it. I really don't remember the last time I saw it, but it was really cool to sit down with it and take it all in, take in some Old West vibes, and just kick back and hang out with Mr. Fate.
yeah, yeah. See, everyone that's come in so far has mentioned the New Year's marathons, right?
Mhm.
And somehow I never saw a Twilight Zone New Year's marathon. I think I do remember Star Trek ones and taping those on VHS, but I maybe because I didn't have cable, maybe it was on the cable station where they
It
showed
was
you the
on
Twilight
Sci-Fi
Zone.
Channel. Yeah, Sci-Fi
Ah,
Channel was the one that did that.
okay. I was stuck with my UHF Star Trek marathons, which it's not a bad thing either. So,
I mean, there are worse problems to have.
I mean, to me, I feel like at least TOS, original series Trekkie, like just by design, you're also going to love the Twilight Zone. They have the same kind of sense of morality, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Roddenberry and Serling were very similar, cut from a very similar cloth.
Yeah, and Roddenberry spoke at Serling's funeral, and I actually got I have several guests coming in from the Roddenberry podcast to do these, because I just feel like they are kind of like twins, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
And I do wonder if Serling had a few more years on him, what would have happened. So, I mean, would he have tried to do like yet another anthology series? Would he, get in the movies or a little bit more? I mean, I know he wrote the original screenplay for Planet of the Apes, which was quite changed by the time it was filmed, but retains a bit of his sensibilities, I think.
Yeah, a little bit, but it still had a lot of Serling in there. It definitely felt in the end. The ending is especially Serling-y feeling. So I mean, I love those movies. So
and
but
I was just gonna make my weird confession. I swore I wouldn't do this on air, but now I have to do it. And so I've been watching tons of like Key and Peele, like on YouTube, right?
uh-huh.
And I didn't watch Jordan Peele's movies.
Yeah.
Like I know you're a big horror guy. I'm not a big horror guy. I haven't seen them. So only last night did I make the connection that that's the same Peele.
Really?
I did not make the connection. I haven't seen the new Twilight Zone, which at this point I'm like, well, I got to do all the other Twilight Zones and then I'll watch it, right? Which I might.
The new
I've heard
Twilight
it's
Zone's
good.
been canceled too. It's been canceled. So
yeah,
it had two
got
seasons. It was pretty good. The
Okay.
second season really got its groove very well. So, and Jordan Peele literally comes on screen and basically does a Rod Serling, which I found odd.
Because I was just watching the sketch, the Key and Peele sketch with the guy that wants to use the toilet on the airplane. If you've seen this one, and
no, I haven't seen that one.
Peele is the flight attendant, like you got to sit down. We're in turbulence. It's like nothing's happening. He said, the light's on. It's like, is it against the law? The light's on. Is it against the law? And finally, the flight attendant goes and straps himself or herself. I think it's supposed to be a woman, straps herself into a chair, and then the plane starts going nuts, right? But it keeps cutting back to Peele's face, and it kind of looks like he's telekinetically doing it. Death staring from across the plane. So I was like, and now it's like comedy, but it has a Twilight Zone vibe. So then only making the connection last night, which is that. Yeah, that made me feel like the dumbest thing ever. I didn't admit in the conversation I had made that connection, but I was just like, how could I have not made that connection? Because I haven't seen the new one or his movies, but now, yeah, his stock just went up way in my book because I kept hearing about how his movies and new Twilight Zone were so good, and I've just been watching all his sketch comedy, and now it's connected. The circle is complete. So
his movies are really, really good. I
they
cannot
are
recommend them enough. Oh yeah, they're
if I'm
excellent.
going to watch horror, they are, well, after the Nightmare on Elm Street films, they are at the top of my list. But I since we talked about Nightmare on Elm Street, I'm still looking for a good excuse to watch 2, and then I'll need an excuse to watch 3, 4, and I might be finished after that, but or not. I don't know. Might have to watch
on your
Favorites
mood.
of Jason. Yeah. So you've made some westerns, you've made some horror. Can you plug that stuff a bit?
Sure can. So my first Western is a film called Calamity Jane's Revenge. And it's a woman-fronted revenge Western. You can find it lots of places. Tubi TV has it. Amazon has it. It's a lot of fun. And I shot a new Western, which hasn't been announced yet, but we wrapped it this year. And it's a kind of historical fiction telling of a Jesse James story that was really, really fun. And we went a little dark with it, which I enjoyed. I always like throwing things different because Calamity Jane's Revenge was a little cartoony. We let the villains be really larger than life, and the gunfights are real big and ridiculous. So in this one, it's a lot more subdued, and when people die, it's much less pleasant. It's much less kind. So but those two are my 2 forays into Westerns. I'll probably end up doing another one, maybe even next year. But I'm definitely going to have to change it up because I am tired of standing out in a big field with some smelly horses. I want to do a different kind of Western this time. So we'll see what I have up my sleeve next year.
Coconuts. It's going to be coconuts, isn't it? Monty Python style.
You got it.
This is the Time Enough podcast. You can find it by that handle on Twitter or Facebook. It's part of the umbrella of podcast on Patreon, which is Podcastio Podcastius. We also do sci-fi movies at Matt and Luke's Sci-Fi Sanctuary. You can find podcasts about Pokemon, about Monster Hunter, and I make music, which is at rovingsagemedia.bandcamp.com. And I'm glad you talked about your new Western. Before we record this, I'd already decided to go out on this podcast with a tune I recently released, which is Jesse James and Billy the Kid. So,
ooh, nice.
So you won't hear it now, but you'll hear it when you hear the podcast. And for the listener, you will hear it now.